I was an avionics specialist for in-flight entertainment, Panasonic. Traveled all over the world for them, and then I ran a repair facility for them. And it was a good job as far as jobs go. Very high tech. Learned a lot. It was, through the mid-90s to about 2001 when the tech crash put me and my three business partners out of work, and then we started the business after that doing free energy research, and I'm still doing that through a few incarnations. So now I have a consulting business, and I consult with people all over, firms all over the world, some of them research and development firms, some of them standard businesses. So I do anywhere from all kinds of thermal design systems to energy recovery systems to free energy deep research to you name it. That's who my clients are. Now I do have a personal website on my free energy stuff, and that's paulmariobabcock.com, which I never have time to update or deal with. So it's a blast for me because I fully recognize and take responsibility for my reality creating powers that I was blessed with, and so I recreate a world for me that's freaking awesome and glorious. I absolutely believe in God.
Right.
And how can you not?
I don't know. That's on other interviews.
But it's my deal with is the language I use, Creator, the Big Holy, and all that, is to kind of take that religious, all that ugly hair that people have hung on God, right? All that guilt and weird stuff. And so when I refer to God, it comes from more of my Native American heritage. It's the spirit that moves in all things, the Big Holy, the one and only, the one Creator. All descriptions of the same thing, right? People have a lot of misunderstandings about Native life and what it's really like, so I don't really care for the Hollywood view of Native America because it's not reality. It's Native American, so my mother's the second oldest Colville tribal member. My grandfather was the first American Indian to ever fly an airplane with a private pilot's license. He was also the first American Indian to die in a plane crash with a private pilot's license. So there's a lot of history there, and I'd have to go into it. But if you went to Kashmir, Washington, and then went into the museum there, you'd see my entire ancestry. Were the first white settlers or the first traders that came into the Okanagan, or the Wenatchee Valley was my great-great-great-grandfather, his brother, and their partner. And they basically threw in with the Indian tribes there, and that was the beginning of Wenatchee in that area. So the people I came from, my native heritage is from the Inuit band of the 12 tribes of the Northwest. And so they kind of saw the future, and they integrated with the white man and kind of became blended, and they took on animal husbandry and orchards, and they learned how to, because they knew the world was changing. But they were also in the middle of the traditional native culture that wanted nothing to do with it. And then there was white culture. So the racist thing and everything, when people talk about racist, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I lived it like nobody ever did, right? So I know what it's like to grow up caught between two cultures. And that's what reservation life was like. It was not easy. My mother's maiden name is Snyder. And so my grandfather looked like a full-blood Indian, but he had blue eyes, and he married a red-headed Irish woman. My grandmother, they were like 19 and 16. In 1924, right? So that just wasn't done in those days, right? It's called marrying down. So, but then they had my mother and my two uncles, and then the rest of all my great aunts and uncles. They're all hybrids basically, and depending on how the marriage went, so that's how the blood quantum went. But it was basically a group of incredibly intelligent, motivated, beautiful people who were surrounded by ignorance, screwed over by the government. They were hated by the tribes, they were hated by the whites, but they were probably the most intelligent, amazing group of people. They what they did there in the Wenatchee Valley, they turned it into a little paradise. And native culture and white culture kind of blended. So my great-great-grandfather, they were direct descendants of Hugo Freer, who was the Huguenot who showed up in New York running from King Louis in like 1610 or something like that. The Babcock name comes from James Babcock, who came with the Puritans in like 1630. And then there's a native culture, and then I'm just a hybrid, North American hybrid of umpteen cultures and displaced people who banded together, and it just moved across the West. And so here I am in 2020, this long heritage and history of all these people who just always beat the odds, and we're always innovating and moving on, and and there's just a long history of it.
And here you are at this conference, and you are here because you're a spectator, you're a presenter,
I'm a presenter.
Presenter, and you've been presenting on
numerous different subjects, but mostly about free energy, the physics behind it, how to do it, Earth, the electric universe, spirituality, our relationship to the world we live in and Creator. A lot of different things.
Is this material that you would say go into perhaps a public library if there was a time block of an hour and be able to tell an audience about, or is this just geared towards people that are really intelligent, engineer type?
No, I always gear to the public, right? I always try to make it as simple as I can for everybody to understand. This isn't exactly an engineering conference, although a lot of science and engineering people come here. This is a forum of ideas and research. This is where new civilizations get created. This is where this event, started in 2012, so I was one of the first presenters. Peter and Aaron asked me to, so I came out of groundhog mode, which before then I stayed out of the public eye. And then so I've been here every year since, so this was my 8th year presenting.
So what can we do to get more young people involved? What would you say is the average age here of attenders?
There's anywhere from 17 or 18 to 90.
And should we be tapping into the public schools or private schools to invite the students to consider participating in the future?
Well, 2 things. First thing I do is I take their cell phones away, and then I'd eliminate Common Core and shut down the public schools and actually create an education system that worked from day one. And that would be number 1 to me to do, but then I'd love to see a bunch of people. 21-year-old guy who walked up to me yesterday and says, "Man, you have changed my life. I will never look at the world the same again. I feel like like I'm here, that I have a purpose." And when someone walks up and tells you that, it's pretty humbling, It's just like, and I hear that all the time because the videos have been published around the world, and now I find myself that I've got a following in Europe and a following in South America. And last year, a family came all the way from Fiji, walked up to me and shook my hand and says, "You changed our lives. I'll never look at electricity the same way."
So for what these people can appreciate from your divulging, how can your technology be used in a practical way?
What's your presentation first? Let's do that.
My presentation this year was beneficial field technologies.
Oh, let's elaborate.
Beneficial field technologies can be anything and any kind of, light, magnetism, electromagnetism, electrostatics, ether physics, any of it. But if it's a device that emits a field that's supposed to bring you beneficial benefits to your health and well-being. And so the Earth is actually a beneficial field generator. So my talk yesterday was on the civilizations that built all the great pyramids and everything were actually, the whole purpose of that, all that ancient stonework is it's a giant beneficial field generator that generates orgone energy, the energy of life. And that is the number 1 mechanism that underpinned their civilization. They created in an electrical life force field thing to where all chromosomal life thrived right from the beginning because of the beneficial field technology they used, to where the electric universe is the actual source of your existence, not food and breathing.
This information you just told me, I didn't learn this in school, so why is this not taught in schools?
Well, that's what happens when you live on a slave planet. They're not about to teach you. And in fact, they teach you just the opposite, that you're not a reality creator, that reality happens to you, to hand your power over, to submit and obey the rules and just follow and just be the clone. And that's the worst thing you can ever teach a child. To me, turn them loose like wild Indians.
Well, you did say you learned quite a bit on your own.
Oh, virtually everything.
And was this because you had the drive, because you wanted to just curiously learn, or you were out to prove somebody wrong?
None of the above. It's what I came here to do. It's why I was born. It's a mission. The number one thing is as you believe, so your world will be. If you believe people suck and that everybody's a devious little scammer, guess what? That's all you're ever going to see in life. If you want to have love and courage in your life, you better embrace it yourself. You better understand beliefs are the most powerful driver of your reality. And as you change your beliefs, so your world will change. And that's a really hard thing for people to do, especially core beliefs that are so invisible to you that you just accept them as who you are and you don't even realize it's a belief. Your own belief is sabotaging your life. If you don't believe in abundance and prosperity, you think that, your life is, that lack is the actual normal condition of life. Guess what? You're going to be poor your whole life. And the two things I tell people, especially young ones, the two most destructive forces in the universe, number one is self-pity and number two is victimhood. Never embrace those things. No matter how much you've been victimized, no matter how bad you think you need to feel sorry for yourself, because you will destroy your life.
This is about abundance. This place shows we have hidden energy that is in abundance.
It's endless. There's no such thing as a shortage of anything on this planet. It's all been, your belief system has been manipulated to make you believe so. The economy has been manipulated to make you think so. And it's just snap out of it, people. Quit believing these freaking lies. Turn your freaking TV off. First thing. It was a great day when I turned up. I had a subscription to a Direct TV for 22 years. I added up what I was paying. I said, I'm sitting here and I've watched Josie Wales on this channel at least 4,000 times, and I'm still paying for it. And then I could going through the cable channels that I hate so bad, like CNN, all the news networks that are lying to me, and all the drug companies that are pushing their poison. And that, if you sit and watch that for 22 years, pretty soon they've got you, right? This is what happened. So when I canceled that subscription, I said, CNN's, every time I pay that, CNN's getting a piece of me. Screw them. The best thing I ever did was turn that thing off. Gave me more time to read books.
There's nothing on there.
It's just, and then this used to happen to me when I'd go live in the Alaska bush for long lengths of time. Leave a job, you're watching the TV, and everybody, the media and whatnot, you go off in the bush. In about 6 months, you come back out and you sit with people and look at that TV, and there is no connection to you cannot even look and believe that there's no resemblance to real people to you that's on that TV. But if you sit there for a week and watch it with people, the next thing you know, they look real to you. It becomes a reality, and it's really not. And that's where people just fall into this sense, and their TV's leading their life. It's been a practice by evil people to control and manipulate our minds forever. And so when you claim your own turf, which is the space around you, your psychic turf, your reality creation area, you claim it for yours, and your self-determination is mine. Nobody can make me do what I don't want to do, not at gunpoint. That's why you'll never see a mask on my face.
Or a chip in your arm.
Exactly. I haven't taken a vaccination since 1985. I said, snap out of it, people. Why do you think they have protection from liability? They have indemnity. This day I can sue them if they hurt me. I might consider it. Until then, no way. The Bill of Rights. What a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
That applies to everybody on the planet, man. I've been to third world hellholes like you would not believe. And for people to bitch about life in America just drives me freaking insane. Oh, electrocoagulation? It's been around a long time, and it's an easy thing to do. It's just one of those knowledges people just don't have because, people don't really ask and research. But it's just a really simple process. If you take two metal rods and you stick them in water and run DC electrical current through it, it will, what they call sacrificial ions, metal particles with a high electrical charge will come off into the water. And then what they do is their electrical charge is so high that they attract all the contaminants and particles in the water, and it sucks them to them, and then they electrically bond and chemically bond, and it makes all those toxic metals neutral.
Okay.
And then what's called flocculates, it clumps together to where it gets big enough to where gravity can pull it out of the water. It makes everything completely non-toxic and neutral.
Okay.
And it's an amazing amount of chemistry, and the reason it's not used everywhere is the same about how people really don't understand industry and who owns it and how it works in America. So GE and Halliburton, basically, they have what they call chemical coagulation water purification processes where they use chemicals
right.
to do the same thing. Well,
right. adding silicon fluoride.
lots of different stuff.
Yeah.
Depending on what they're dealing with and what they're trying to purify.
Which is nonsense, really.
Total nonsense. So it's highly toxic.
Yeah.
It's expensive compared to EC.
Yeah.
But man, do the stockholders of GE and Halliburton and DuPont and all the 3M, do they make the money on the chemical? Well, then I stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to this kind of technology. They came to me wanting to improve the power qualities, and then they turned me on to what they were doing. It's used industrial all over, right?
Who was they? The corporations?
Yeah.
Chemical? Or?
The people who own commodities industries. People don't understand how business works.
How does it work?
So 2/3 of the economy, the industrial economy, whether it's starch or paper or steel or all these businesses are commodity businesses, fish, food production, they're all owned by interlocking corporations that are all owned by the American families, right? The elite families. And so that's their money machine. And it's all interlocked, and that's why they have all their buddies are in their courts, and this family thing. We get the other third of the economy they don't care about. But if you start coming up with things that you come up with better processes, better money machines, you start competing with them in their market, good luck.
They'll get a knock at the door.
Yeah, all of the above. Or with us, basically, when we were creating lighting technology and stuff that was very disruptive, it's the phone calls go around and you just get blackballed.
Oh.
And so they've got many ways. They might just shoot you, but you're not going to get to the marketplace.
Right.
There's a system in place that's been around for a long time that supersedes all our constitutional laws. They don't give a rat about it. They play it amongst themselves, and you don't get to play that game. So they might shoot each other, but if you get in and you go in and you're going to take an industry, say it's $500 million, $1 billion a year industry, and I'm going to show up in the marketplace and take that away from somebody that's in that club, you might as well forget it. People don't know. It goes right down like New York, Chicago. People have no idea how it really works, and that's going to change here when the money system changes and we go back to honest dollars. A lot of that's going to change, right? So that's why the dishonest money system. So it's all a big club, and they've played this for a long time, and now that's the problem. That's what the fear is we ain't being played anymore. Thank God, I'm going to see it in my lifetime. I was getting depressed there through the last, 2000 to, 2010 or 12 was mighty depressing, So now it's like, oh yeah, it's on, it's happening. and they ain't going to give it to us. We got to take it. Our reality creating powers. That's what they fear the most. It's not what we do with our hands. It's what we do with our mind, right? Because that's where the power's at. When you take your personal power back, you quit feeling sorry for yourself. You get red pilled a little bit, and then you actually show some courage instead of, as Dennis Prager, I was watching him the other day, a statement he said that really struck me was, cowardice is the default position of the average human. And I'd say that's really true, right? But what I see now is a lot of people are finally finding their personal courage and saying no. And if you can't pay that personal price, nothing's ever going to change, right? That's like with the COVID thing, Somebody, why don't you wear a mask? I says, in the spirit of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, unjust laws left unbroken never change. So when all those black folks in Alabama were getting beat with clubs and shot and thrown in prison, eventually, guess what? They got their way. No more Jim Crow laws. What did Gandhi do with the whole nation? He broke laws. And guess what? I'm going to break COVID laws till the end and throw me in jail, do whatever you're going to do. You'll never make me submit or shut me up. Which that's all it is. And I defy anybody to find a sick person. I was having this conversation with my mother the other day because one of her friends died of COVID. Of course, he was almost 90 years old, but I said, she's trying to give me a mask. I said, Mom, I've been calling around. No matter who I talk to, nobody can find a sick person. In January and February, I could find sick people, but now nobody can tell me we're on a plague because look around, there's nobody sick. Just tell me that there's a plague on. Tell me I need a mask. It's all a lie. Get over it. Viruses are ubiquitous everywhere, and they go right through, both directions, and there is no protecting yourself from viruses. If you want to protect yourself from viruses, I can tell you exactly how to do it, because I've been doing it for years. Antivirals are real. You can get them right from your druggist. So I learned this from medical missionaries on how not to get sick traveling around the world. So before I go to the airport, I take a bottle of water and I put 10 drops of potassium iodide in it. And I drink that down, and for 48 hours at least, I'm completely immune and cannot be touched by viruses or bacteria. Because, your body knows how to use it, and it goes within 30 seconds, every mucous membrane in your body is exuding iodine, and viruses die when they touch your eyelids or your lips, and I've done it for years. Except last January when I had to go to a business meeting in San Francisco and I forgot, and sure enough I got COVID hanging out with all the Chinese people in the airport. I got home, biomagnet therapy, potassium iodide, and I was fine in 24 hours like I never had it. Everybody that I was with, all 5 people I met in a business meeting, they got sick too, and they were sick for 2 to 3 weeks. And so hydrochloroquine, I've known about that for years. The cure from the common cold has been around, and because people are brain dead and they let themselves be lied to, they're being lied to now. All the cures are there and have been for years, but they denied it so they can sell us Theraflu and plug us with vaccines.
And make us broke.
Exactly.
By paying for that.
So I've been over that insanity for years. And I've traveled the world and never been sick in at least 10 years, except for the one time I forgot. And EC is another one, clean water, I've almost died of dysentery several times. And in places you'd think you never get it. But if all I got's 2 copper wires and a 9-volt battery and an empty bottle, I can fill up with dirty water, poke a couple of holes in it, slide the rods in there, hook a 9-volt battery up to it for an hour, let it settle, and I can drink that water just fine. I don't care if you're in a swamp, wherever you're at, you can always get clean water. You can always find something to eat that's clean. And, it's just knowledge. I used to be survivalist, mountaineering guy. I'd go off for 3 or 4 weeks and live off the land. I did it in the bush, Alaska. I put more meat on the table, caught more fish, trapped more furs, growing more stuff in my own garden. And I love that life. My best friend and I, in fact, he'll be here sometime here. We were in Alaska living in the bush, right? He lived about 2 miles from me, but the neighbor kids, they came and got us one day. We found a bear. And it was a little cub bear that had went into hibernation without its mother, and it was springtime. and it was so weak and starved it could hardly move. So we just, well, Al, what do we do? So we just lashed it up on a pole and took it home, fed it electrolyte powders, and I took care of sled dogs for dog mushers in the summer. And we put him in the dog lot, and the next thing you know, he just started to get turned into a happy, healthy little bear, right? He was a mean little bastard. He was still totally wild. But man, he was cool, Boo Boo Bear.
When did you?
He actually died when we were trying to actually, we didn't realize it, but he had probably had some damage from being starved so bad. So over the summer, he grew into this fat little, just plump bear, man. It's funny, you'd walk up to him, and he'd be ready to swat you. Just take an apple and bite an apple and hold it down to his nose, and he'd just like electric shock. And then he'd, I don't have to be so bad. And he'd come up and take the apple and go eat it, and then go back to being a bad little bear. So my best friend, the collar got so tight and he got so healthy, they threw a blanket on him trying to loosen the collar, and he had a heart attack. Or he just stroked out and something, and he died right there where they were loosening the collar. But he was tasty.
And you kept the fur.
Yeah, Al kept the fur. He was on my wall for years. And then we had him whole, put him in the freezer, and then it was about 2 weeks later, a good friend of ours died from a mysterious form of cancer that came along out of nowhere. And then we roasted him at her wake. Classic story. So we're sitting there, we're eating this bear, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife guys were there because they knew Dee too. And I'm sitting there eating this, and they're commenting on how good the bear was, and one of my neighbors walked up and says, "This is some of the best bear I've ever eaten, Paul, although I can taste a little bit of attaboy in it," because he had lived on dog food. And the two wildlife agents are, "What? Yeah, this isn't wild bear, this is domestic bear. We raised him, And they're like, "You can't do that." And I says, "Well, you're eating them, aren't you?"
Yeah, give them back. Throw it up there. Yeah.
But the look on it was one of those priceless looks, because I have this love-hate relationship with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It was too late now. You're eating them. You can't.
Okay, that's nice to know.
So that's just a little Alaskan story, and we did that with a lynx one time and a bunch of other critters, and so we'd find wildlife that was damaged and nurse them back to health and turn them loose. And the bear, Boo Boo Bear, was never going to be turned loose, because you just can't let a bear that you've made people social turn it loose, So